Your cells are aging faster than they should, and the reason is not your age. It is something happening inside every cell in your body right now. A decline most people have never heard of. Scientists call it NAD plus depletion, and a geneticist at Harvard Medical School named David Sinclair spent 25 years proving it is the central mechanism behind how quickly you age. Not just whether you age, but how fast. By 50, most people have half the NAD plus they had at 20. That is not a slow drift. That is the fuel supply to your cellular repair system being cut in half. And there are specific foods that reverse it. Here is what that means at the cellular level. Sinclair's central finding is that aging is not simply wear and tear. It is, in large part, a loss of information. Think of it like a file that still exists on your hard drive, but can no longer be read correctly. Every cell in your body carries the same DNA, but sirtuins are the proteins that read it correctly, switching the right genes on and off at the right time. When sirtuin activity falls, that reading becomes noisier. Cells start to behave as if they have forgotten what they are supposed to do. The reason sirtuin activity falls is straightforward. Sirtuins run on NAD+, a coenzyme that every cell produces, but produces less of as we age. By 50, most people have roughly half the NAD plus they had at 20. The practical implication is this: anything that raises NAD plus availability or directly activates sirtuin proteins supports the machinery your body uses to slow down the processes that drive most age-related decline. Here are 3 food groups that support this exact pathway. The first group supports the sirtuin pathway at its most fundamental level. They supply or help your body build NAD plus itself, the coenzyme Sinclair's research identified as the rate-limiting factor in sirtuin function. Edamame contains NMN precursors, compounds your body converts into nicotinamide mononucleotide, which feeds directly into the NAD plus biosynthesis pathway. NMN enters the salvage pathway, your body's recycling route for building NAD plus, without starting from scratch. Think of it as dropping a supply line directly into the part of the process that slows down most with age. The result is that your cells have more of the coenzyme that sirtuins need to function, rather than rationing it. Many people in their 50s describe this as that slow start morning window, compressing. Not an energy spike, but the fog lifting 20 or 30 minutes earlier than usual. Consistently, after 2 to 3 weeks of eating edamame 3 or 4 times a week. Arugula is one of the highest dietary sources of quercetin, a polyphenol that addresses a different side of the NAD plus problem. As we age, an enzyme called CD38 becomes increasingly active, and CD38 consumes NAD+. Quercetin inhibits CD38, which means it slows the drain rather than just adding to the supply. The analogy is useful. Edamame fills the tank, arugula fixes the leak. Both are necessary. Together, edamame and arugula create the internal conditions where NAD plus supply can reach the levels Sinclair's work showed sirtuins need to do what they were designed to do. Sustain the cellular repair processes that keep your body functioning like a younger version of itself. The second food group works at a different point in the pathway. These foods do not primarily build NAD+, they directly activate the sirtuin proteins themselves, mimicking the genetic effect of caloric restriction without the restriction. The skin of red grapes contains resveratrol, a compound found in meaningful concentrations in whole grapes. Resveratrol binds directly to SIRT1, the primary sirtuin linked to longevity, and increases its activity. In plain terms, it turns the sirtuin up. The mechanism mirrors what happens during caloric restriction when your body senses low energy and activates cellular maintenance mode. Resveratrol triggers part of that same response without requiring you to fast. People who eat red grapes with skin regularly sometimes describe a clarity that arrives in the late morning, rather than mid-afternoon, that sense of being mentally present rather than slightly behind. Mulberries contain pterostilbene, a compound structurally similar to resveratrol, but with significantly higher bioavailability, meaning your body absorbs and uses more of it per gram. Fresh or dried, mulberries are carried at most health food stores. Pterostilbene activates SIRT1 and also supports SIRT3, a sirtuin specifically active inside mitochondria, the energy-producing structures in every cell. This matters because mitochondrial function declines with age, in a way that directly affects how well your cells generate energy. This is often the food where people in their 50s notice that exercise recovery feels slightly less punishing. Not dramatically, but the day after heaviness in the legs or arms, being shorter-lived. That is mitochondrial function improving at the cellular level, and it tends to compound over weeks. Together, red grapes and mulberries activate the sirtuin system from two angles, SIRT1 for cellular repair signaling and SIRT3 for mitochondrial energy production, giving the pathway Sinclair identified, both a switch and a power source. The third group shows how this all works over time and why the foods in the first two groups become more effective. The longer you combine them with these foods reduce the cellular inflammation that actively suppresses sirtuin activity, creating the conditions where the whole system works together. Extra virgin olive oil, specifically cold-pressed high polyphenol EVOO, contains oleic acid alongside oleuropein and oleocanthal, compounds that act on the cellular signaling environment sirtuins operate in. Oleic acid suppresses mTOR, the cellular growth pathway that, when chronically overactivated, pushes cells into a mode that prioritizes growth over repair. When mTOR quiets down, your cells shift toward the maintenance and recycling behaviors that sirtuins govern. That shift is what clears the runway for the rest of this system to work. This tends to show up as digestion that is simply quieter, not the bloating or heaviness after meals that many people in their 50s accept as normal. That post-meal heaviness often reflects chronic low-grade gut inflammation that EVOO's compounds help calm over time. Walnuts contain alpha-linolenic acid, the plant form of omega-3, alongside L-glutanins, polyphenols that are converted by gut bacteria into urolithins, compounds now recognized as potent activators of mitophagy. Mitophagy is the selective clearance of damaged mitochondria, your cells removing the ones that have stopped working efficiently and recycling their components. Walnuts support that process from the outside in. The urolithins produced from their polyphenols help trigger it, while their omega-3 reduces the inflammatory environment that otherwise suppresses the whole repair system. Many people notice this in their sleep quality before they notice it in their daytime energy, specifically waking feeling more rested, despite the same number of hours. Mitochondrial quality affects how deeply cells restore during sleep, and when that process improves, rest starts feeling like it actually counts. Again, together, extra virgin olive oil and walnuts complete the picture. They reduce the inflammation that mutes sirtuin activity, support the mitochondrial maintenance those sirtuins govern, and create the cellular environment where the NAD plus U are building through the first two food groups can actually be used. This is why the combination matters, more than any single food. Your cells already know how to do most of this. The sirtuin system, the NAD plus pathway, the mitochondrial repair process. These are not new instructions. They are existing biological machinery that runs well when it has the right inputs and runs slowly when it does not. What these 6 foods do across those 3 groups is provide those inputs consistently. Red grapes and mulberries switch the sirtuins on. Edamame and arugula give them the NAD plus they need to run. Olive oil and walnuts clear the inflammatory interference that would otherwise mute the whole system. That is a complete loop, not a collection of separate benefits. Tomorrow morning, add a handful of fresh arugula to whatever you are already eating for breakfast. That is it. One change. Quercetin from arugula starts inhibiting CD38, the enzyme draining your NAD plus from the first serving. Everything else can follow from there, one food at a time. Together, these foods support the exact biological pathway that David Sinclair spent 25 years uncovering. If this video helped you, like, comment, and subscribe so more people can benefit from this.